Please give Mr. Lalit Bhasin a big round of applause because he makes you think, reiterates the things that matter. So, now we have a GC panel. When we started BW Legal World, there are legal platforms that are available, and life is about abundance. Everyone should do well. But we chose to be the homepage of the GC. That's how we define ourselves. So, because we believe we are at the cusp of business and law. We're not about courts. That's not how we define our existence. So really for us, GCs are a core audience. In fact, today we'll also announce our jury panel for our GC 100 and our GC awards that are in Feb or March. So really this is an important session. The General Counsel's role has grown in the last decade. Their remuneration has grown in the last decade. A lot of them have started to make it to the boards. There's still a long way to go, but the General Counsel is very important, or among the most important stakeholders when it comes to the business world and the legal world. Today we are discussing how our General Counsel is evolving to deal with modern day challenges. So let me start by asking each one of them for their opening comments, and then I'll raise some specific questions about what do they see the role of the GC in the future, how much emphasis they have on compliance, how much on risk, how much on governance, how much on business, what are the challenges they face, what is their advice to the younger people in the room. But let me start with Mr. Amar Sundram for his opening comments on how has the role of a GC changed in the last few years.
Thank you, Annurag. And first and foremost, we all GCs community thank Dr. Lalit Bhasin and Dr. Annurag Batra for the kind of support that they have always extended to the in-house counsels and general counsels. This support has been the major contribution in recognizing the efforts of the GCs on a number of public platforms. So thank you so much, Annurag, for doing what you are doing. And we hope you will continue to support us. Same for Dr. Bhasin. We definitely need your blessings and advice. But coming back to your question, Annurag, let me share a couple of data points. So, Association of Corporate Counsel, ACC, just came out with a survey report, which is a CLO survey report of 2023. And they captured the feedback from almost 900 CLOs across...
CLOs meaning Chief Legal Officers, which is like GC, then, the terminology, but yeah, it's really the kind of people on the panel.
And they surveyed some 900 general counsels, the CLOs, the Chief Legal Officers across 20 sectors in 35 countries. And they came out with a data point that 78% of them are reporting directly to the CEO, which was, and this is 2023, which was 66% in 2018. So that jump of 6% in terms of a direct reporting to the CEO. If you go back to those traditional reporting structure, they were reporting to the CFO or HR head or maybe the commercial head. 51% of them are reporting directly to the board. So that's the changing contour of the in-house general counsels within the organizations. So that's how people are looking at it, that as business is growing, new complications are coming up, especially in the context of India. The role of GCs are being seen as a widespread role. It is not only legal now. If you see last 5 years, it's a spread across various areas. So lawyers, in-house lawyers, GCs are not doing only the hardcore legal work. They are into policies, they are into data, they are into cybersecurity, they are into compliance, they are into ethics, they are into whistleblowers. So if you see the whole spread of the role of a general counsel within an organization,
it is expanded.
It's much expanded role that we are talking about.
So Mr. Sundram is making 2 points. One, that the role has become even more important, and hence in the numbers represented reports directly to the board or the CEO. Second, the role has become more comprehensive, and which we always say a business solution provider, if I may simplify it. We'll go around the house and we'll get Payal to be able to Ms. Khanna, your opening comments.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you so much, first of all, BW Legal World, for giving me the opportunity. I think, considering that, I have worked across a couple of diverse industries, I've worked across in FMCG and then automotive and now with logistics. I personally feel that our role of a general counsel has become more like a business enabler. I think that's something which we all always debate about. But personally also, I feel it's now more that they look about general counsels as a more proactive approach. So it should not be the case that when the business is into any trouble or when the business is having any issues, only then they come to us. So we work hand in hand with the business teams, not just when they are sort of having any project, but just, sitting in the board. So that's, I think, one of the very important part, that why we lawyers
Yeah,
have
in
been
fact,
given.
I have friends who work for MNCs abroad, my business school. They say if our legal head vetoes a merger, and I'm talking of a very large organization, for whatever reasons, that it may hit a antitrust issue or there may be monopoly issues, then we don't put time and effort into it mostly.
Yes.
Or we find some ways to either make the merger smaller or whatever, find ways around it. So really the role of the GC in terms of strategic decision making has been very big in the US. And I think now in India in the last decade or so, the same is happening.
Yeah, it's all also because of all the globalization, multinational companies coming in, and they really encourage and they really value our, our
Involvement and inputs.
involvement. But however, I think a larger role, I think, for us as general counsels is also being a trusted business partner. Many times when we sit into board meetings, many times we sit into business meetings, we should be looked at somebody whom they can look up to for any advice, even though they may not be always on the right track. So I think for us, I think two key takeaways, I think all these years, which I always try to emphasize and try to work upon, is being a trusted business partner. And of course, you're a lawyer on the board, trying to support them, but how they can just reach out to you for anything, if they have any issues or they don't have any issues or seeking guidance. So I think that's, is a very important role for us as general counsels these days. And I think that's really helping us in bringing that visibility, helping us in navigating the challenges across.
Thank you so much, Pranav. Again, you work across industries, now work in the new age firms. So how has the role of the GC changed? And where is it headed? What's still right, what's still not right?
Very, very, very contemporary question. I think I was expecting someone to ask basically only this question because I thought I will only have an answer for this question, and you just read my mind. It really depends. As a GC who started from a law firm, things will be very different. The challenges will be very different. A GC who starts in a startup, things will be very, very different from how he's seen in a law firm or an independent practice. And a GC who's in a private firm versus a listed company. I think there are 4 GCs that you will find, and some of them will have very, very different challenges in the sector they operate. Not only because of the businesses that they are into, but also because of the way their own business internally is structured, or the CEO is trying to get a revenue, trying to get stability, trying to get profits, trying to get a benchmark with other fellow competitors. So in the modern day businesses, for a general counsel, I think the first thing that you should probably as students should be looking into is to understand business. Law is, I won't say it's very, very difficult. You will, over the years, will probably understand. You have all the law firms to support you. The experience on the other side will help you. But if you don't understand your own businesses, the law firm will also not trust you that much. So understanding your own business, the nitty-gritties, the details of it, everything, from how the employment happens, from how the manpower is coming into an exit, all of it you need to know. Some products, some businesses can be very, very technical. Cloud-based, cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and those will take especially a longer time, and you need to understand where the law will fit in, or if there is any law, or as Dr. Batra said, do we really, or Dr. Bhasin said, do we really need a regulator to operate in those, or are we okay to be self-operated? So it really depends upon if the consumer is at a risk or is a business at risk, if the consumer is at risk, then the government will step in and probably make laws to make it far better and achievable for consumers to get a remedy. It's a different issue that they may not be able to in the timeline, which is an issue with any developing country. But as businesses, they will have all the means to be looking at getting resolutions and remedy in time, or whether they have the money to prolong a dispute. Then there are two more other aspects of how a GC will have their own understanding. First is the external geography. If you're operating in multi-geographies, you need to understand much more than what an Indian law is, right? And the law operates very, very differently for US versus European countries versus anywhere outside the geography you operate in. And then your own legal team will also operate from many other countries, which is also challenging to work with because of the timelines, because of the service quality, because of the years of experience, because of team management. So if you are able to put it all across for your own self as a GC and probably able to manage your own team, I think the business will trust you far better, because they see you as a department that you can probably are better at, and then they trust you to handle your business very well. I think that's where I have really thought through. But yes, if you are unable to manage your own team, if you're unable to manage the department, it's going to be very difficult that the business really will trust you with their own business, which is revenue bringing, which is to make profits, which is to give specialist legal advice. So yeah.
Okay, Pranav. Let me go to Mr. Choubey. Mr. Choubey, your opening comments on how you've seen this role evolve.
So thank you, Dr. Batra, for this opportunity, and BW and our guru, Mr. Vaseem, for his kind and opening. Now, taking on from where Amar, Payal and Pranav have shared their views, I think I will look at from a slightly different perspective, because I am somebody who started in the late 90s. And the biggest event which I have seen growing is liberalization of 1991. And that is where I think it changed the course of India as a country, because we were a closed economy. And even, I remember my father wanted to buy a Bajaj Super scooter in the late 70s. And he had to buy this through black. In the sense, somebody will book, you have to give a premium, then only you can get that scooter. So those were days where even if Bajaj Auto was given license to produce 10,000 scooter, it cannot produce 10,001. So that was the kind of pre-91, where licensing was very common. And then the economy was opened, and then initially it opened partially and then fully. And that brought a lot of investment. So because earlier, only few companies, maybe companies like Unilever, had legal officers whose job was limited to maybe going to a law firm and give a parawise reply to a case or attend to court. That was the role of the in-house legal. Now what happened is, after 1991, a lot of private investment came and people took risk, and we have seen how some of the risk which has been taken, or the kind of setbacks which we saw 10 years ago, whether it was the coal scam or the 2G scam. Why I'm saying is that businesses did not take the proper legal advice which ought to have been taken. I'm not saying if you had taken, these things would have not happened, but at least the point which I'm trying to drive is business dynamics today has changed a lot. And as GC, I think there are three elements, which is, I call it as GRC, and so does so many people, and which is governance, risk and control. And I recall the words of Mr. D.S. Sundram. I was earlier in ACC, Chief Legal Officer for ACC and Ambuja, and as a GC, so he was the chair of audit committee, and he was also on the board of Infosys, and he used to say that for me, three people are very important in the company apart from the CEO. One is the CFO, because he gives me an assurance that the internal financial controls are in place, apart from the auditor. And then is the internal auditor, because he does an internal audit of the processes which has been set and gives me a confirmation where we stand. And the third person is the general counsel, because whatever businesses does has a legal impact. And I can talk to the GC, and the GC can give me a neutral view, absolutely unbiased view. And so, especially in terms of compliance, in terms of contingent liability. So governance, everybody understands, I think, setting up the right processes, training and everything. Risk is one of the key areas. So whether it is, so just before entering the room, there was something urgent in my company which has to be discussed today. So I attended a call at 11. And why I was pulled into this call, my CFO was there, I was there, and two business guys. Is that we want to do this deal. Rajiv, what is the view? I had given my views yesterday night, but it was on a call. And I had to flag certain issues which the business could not think. So what the GC brings on the table is completely unbiased view, which maybe, at that point of time does not strike to the business guys. Maybe, it's like in an exam I have to, write 120 question in 2 hours, CLAD exam. I know all the answers, but I am not able to complete in time. So it's not that I tell something which they are not aware, but they are not able to think through. So I think one of the key role of the GC is to bring that neutral perspective, that what is the risk?
The devil's advocate.
Yeah. And I may flag the risk. That doesn't mean that the business is not going to do. But understanding that where I stand, and if I'm taking the risk, what is the,
trade-off,
opportunity cost or trade-off? I think that is very, very important. And the third is compliance. I think compliance is very important because especially if you are for a listed company today, the way regulations are changing, it is becoming tougher and tougher. Today under the SEBI LODR, if there is a fine or penalty of even a 1 rupee or a 50,000, you have to report to the stock exchange. And that becomes a, maybe a headline or will be carried in the newspaper. And then you have to respond to the investors and everybody. So I think inculcate that culture of compliance within the organization is one of the key legal, and I think I will stop here and we will take it further as we discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Choubey. Ms. Nautiyal, I know you're last on this panel for the opening comments, but your opening comments on how the role of GC is evolving, where is it headed?
Well, let me start with how it's an absolute pleasure and delight to be part of this event and share the panel with the industry stalwarts. Agreeing to what the other co-panelists have said, I would say that GCs are the heart of the organization. They have to balance it out between what business needs, balance it out between what the law says, balance it out between what your credit wants, mitigate the risk, manage the risk, preempt the risk. You have to be preemptive. You have to be farsighted. India is in a very transformative stage. The laws that were enacted for India are of 1800s and early 1900s. That time, the Indian economy was in a socially developing stage. So you would see the flavor of those laws, are in the nature of something that a socially developing economy needs. But today, we are proud to call ourselves a developed economy. The kind of financial progress India is seeing and is going to see in the next few years when the geographies of, other nations are going down, India is witnessing a decent, stable growth. That is why we are having legislations like Companies Act 2013 or the IBC. We are mirroring the West, but we are enforcing it better, I would say. So GCs have to be preemptive. They have to manage the risk. They should know and be prepared of what the law has. Like, DPDP Act is such an overhauling statute, and we all are gearing up for it, waiting for the rules to come out, but I'm dead sure that all the GCs have a plan in place already, which might change when the rules come up. But we have to be prepared. And adding to what Mr. Amar had to say that, about the reporting pattern, I'm very confident that in the next decade, GCs are going to be the CEOs of most organizations. Because every organization wants to be on the right side of the law. Every organization needs somebody who holds the moral high ground and can find ways of doing business. And I'm one aspiring GC. I'm not a GC of HDFC Bank. I am part of the legal team and I report into a GC. And I'm that one aspiring GC who's going to be maybe someday the CEO of an organization and not just a legal counsel. Thank you so much.
In fact, I did raise this question last year. How many GCs go on to become CEOs? We'll start with you, Ms. Nautiyal. what do you think, because there are some young people that's from, what do you think are the qualities needed? So if you have 10 people, I'm sure you're unique, and if you have 10 people aspiring for the role of a GC in a large organization like yours, what will be the qualities that will make one person a GC? Of course, it's a lot of luck. It's God's,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, it's the willingness to take larger roles, take projects that give you a segue into a bigger role. All that is there, but give us the, you know, when you look at your colleagues across the table, you look at your boss, what are the qualities that the GCs should have or have?
I feel that, GCs have to be very decisive. They have to be decisive. They have to take a decision. They have to hear out the problem. They have to solve the problem. So, to the fellow law students, when I was studying law and then when I started working, it was just so different. I'm like, what do I do with what the sections that I have learned, and, what do I do with them? But when you apply those sections, that is the art. So GCs, when we have discussions, we cite the problem, but that is not what your role. You have to cite the law that because of this you can't do. You have to find out how. Because at the end of the day, if business is there, then a GC is there. So you have to be a problem solver. The better the problem solver you are, I think your road is going to you will get opportunities. But yes, identify the problem. You can't ignore that hum kar lenge. We will do it, and you are passionate and you are positive. All that is needed. Half the battle is won once you identify the problem. The other half is won when you are able to solve it and find ways to solve it. So you have to be a problem solver. That is what my key takeaway is.
Mr. Choubey, you're a GC, right? You interact with other fellow GCs. How do you think GCs are doing in terms of re-equipping themselves, evolving, or what should they be doing? What do you do to make sure that you have in your area a nuanced understanding of what is happening, and also have knowledge of all other areas that impact the business, which is what the CEO should know, which is what the CFO should know. So what are you doing to be able to, so to say, add value to yourself?
Yeah, very good question. And I think I personally feel, and I'll share my experience, and it has not been kind of planned, but it has happened, is that you should need a very good understanding of the business. So like currently I am in a group which is one of the major business is cement. And fortunately for the first time, even I was in cement earlier also. So today I understand cement as a business as much as a business guy will understand, at least very close to that. That what are the dynamics, how pricing is done, what are the raw materials, why it is important to tie up for the raw materials, how do you build your resource and reserve, because you need limestone to build to manufacture cement. So what is the raw material security, where auction is happening, what is the premium, because unless you understand these issues as a GC, you will not be able to link and contribute or understand even the risk. So I think understanding of the business, and Mr. Batra, I can tell you, nobody will come and teach you. So you have to make your own. Like I read a lot of articles on the business, what is happening, who is acquiring which company, there is a consolidation happening, why it is happening, what is the demand, infra is growing, so will cement will grow. I think this entire gamut of business activities, you need to have understanding. That is, I think, key, because unless you have those, and to Ms. Nautiyal's point, that any leader, why GC, any person has to be very decisive. I think decision making is one thing, because I have seen people not able to take decision when they are given with a situation, because there is always a trade-off, as you told. But I always remember Ratan Tata ji, because he said that I always don't take the right decisions. But once I take a decision, I ensure that it is right. There's a lot of power in what he says. So as a leader, you will be given with a situation. It can be, maybe filing a contempt against a government. You think, yaar, jal mein reh ke magar se main bair nahi le sakta. But sometimes you have to bite that bullet, because if the circumstances call for. So, and convincing the business that, look, we have an order, it is not getting enforced, let's file it, At the most, if there is a pressure, I will withdraw it. But thinking that it is against the government, I will not file is no decision. I think decision making is very, very key. But only if you understand the business, that's very, very, important in my view, to become a CEO or any business leader.
Absolutely. Pranav, because this session is titled about the challenges that GCs face, give us some anecdotal, what are the challenges you face sometimes in your role? And what are the business challenges you face?
I think coming to Dr. Batra, the thing that Mr. Choubey didn't tell anyone was cement is also very technical. You need to understand how it's manufactured, but more than that, you need to understand where will we keep it, because you can't store it forever, and it will perish, and it perishes very easily. So it has a 90-day shelf life. After this is all concrete, you will probably see in metro station making a post where the guard is probably standing so that the bullet doesn't hit him. So it's a very technical business. And following from whatever the panel was continuing, I will say one of the things that I had in mind when the points were being discussed is you had decision making, you had understanding, but consistently applying that understanding to make a decision is very important for the GC to be the GC that everyone respects, not only in the company but also in the panel, also in the industry, because different views every time will only diminish your charm, your personality, or your ability to make a business understand that this is what they need. Of course, with time, you'll probably have much more facts and issues which will have a different decision-making process, but consistently applying the same to more like a Supreme Court that they do is one of the things that maybe we should look forward. One of the anecdotes, I think, what Dr. Batra is asking me is, as a SaaS-based startup, we started about 12 years back. We got listed about 2 years back on NASDAQ, and we had a very successful growth. But we were hit with COVID when we were getting listed. And we did get listed even during while we were all working from home. And while there are challenges that everybody is facing around the world, there were a few key points that I thought maybe there's worth discussing. Is the ability to work in a team. If it doesn't happen, you cannot get anywhere. And I just don't say ability to work in a team just as a legal team or team with finance or with the CFO. Everyone, even business, even if you don't respect them too much about what they bring to the table and you bring much more as a GC, you still need to work with them. So you can't be angry, you can't be agitated, you can't be frustrated. Maybe with time they will also learn. Maybe they're not as experienced as you are on the table, but that ability to teach them also is very important, and that's what startups learn from professionals, because not all startups are founded by professionals alike, right? You have varied of them. The other thing I think, the anecdote that I would probably want to put across is when we expand in geographies where we do not have a direct setup, and the business feels that the revenue is going to come in about 2-3 years. So let's set up a subsidiary in Dubai, let's put it out in somewhere in New Zealand or wherever, in Latvia. The question then really is, it's not setting up, it's how easy can you exit? And Dr. Bhasin said the setup window for India is not easy. It's not easy for any country, by the way. It's not as challenging as India also. But exiting is also very, very difficult in India versus exiting outside in other countries. So when you, as a GC, you probably want to understand, what if things go wrong? What if I don't make revenue in the geography? What if my losses are gonna be more than what I have benchmarked in my annual? That's it. And the employment factor, of course, you can't get rid of employees just in a day or two. Somewhere it's easy, 2 months notice, India 2 weeks notice to 2 months notice to 6 months of pay. It really depends. So as a GC, you need to understand which countries are most easy to work with and which countries are most difficult to work with. You'll probably have all the theory from the law firms, but you need to make that decision on the table yourself. The law firms will not help you.
Thank you, Pranav. Ms. Khanna, coming to you, you heard various viewpoints. Now, let's look 3 years ahead. What do you think is likely to happen to a GC role? The role has evolved. The core is the same, but more layers have got added on. So what do you think will happen in the next 3 years, 5 years to the GC role? 1 year salaries will go up a lot, but beyond that, right.
I think that's the final motto that keeps us motivated, the salaries part. Okay, so I think the general counsel, the word general counsel is very self-explanatory. Somebody, like a counsel is of course somebody whom you come to for advice, for guidance, but general means who knows everything, or who is able to guide you about any problem or any supports that you need. So I think earlier, I think if I go back when I started off 16, 17 years back, I'm sure I have more experienced people here, it was a lot about dispute resolution. It was all about, how do you fight cases? I'm a second generation lawyer myself, so I saw my parents all about, advising clients and fighting court cases. I think now I see that 3 years down the line, of course, we have come a long way. We have got a seat on the table, we have advisors and all that, but I see it 3 years down the line as a very critical function in the company, a valued function. We are not merely a support function. I always try to make it a point in my organization that we are not only a support function. But I also feel it also comes with you. I think how you are able to navigate through. So I think personally, stakeholder management, how do you are cutting across all your colleagues, how you are ensuring the CEO is informed. That's what my co-panelist just said. But I think it's all about that you being a very important part of the organization. And I hope someday also look at CEO roles. I personally have one of my managers who just became a CEO in my past organization. She was always a lawyer. She took a HR role, and now she's heading a managing director position in a global company. So I think we do have some examples already about it, but I think it's also on us. How we try to make extra efforts to be with the business, make them trust, I said that point before, that they really see our value addition in the organization. So I think a mindset change from both ends, from our ends and from the ends of the business. I think that's something I see it already happening, and I see it to be continued, and so that we always hold an important position in the organization.
Okay, Mr. Sundram, you started a right note where you talked about the role being expanded and the importance being there in terms of reporting. What were the findings in the survey? I haven't read the survey. I'm going to go and find. And I'm thinking we at BW Legal will should do an India GC survey, which
absolutely,
that's. But what was in the survey which was disturbing? We all talk about rosy good things on panels.
So definitely, I'll not talk about what was disturbing, but an important component. And salary hike is a natural phenomena. It will
sure.
It will not happen because you want it to happen. It will happen because you have proved yourself. One of the important component of that survey was when this question was asked to 900 GCs, the CLOs, that what are the 3-4 areas that you see which is going to be the main critical area in next 3 to 4 years. And they said 3 things. They said cybersecurity.
Of course.
They said regulatory compliances, and third, they said data privacy. So these were the 3 areas where there will be a lot of focus. Now, just in terms of the regulatory compliances, 67,000 crores charge sheet has been filed, one of the largest manufacturer of the handset today, ED. We all read, right? So every day when we get up, and today I was seeing the morning TV news, the entire criminal law system is getting changed. Police remand, which was so far 15 days, is going to be extended to 60 days plus 30 more days. So 90 days. That is the kind of change that we are witnessing in India. The whole criminal justice system is getting revamped. Whether it will have positive impact, definitely it will have. It will also have its consequences. And that's where we need to be aligned and one up. We talked about an global judgment, Annurag. This judgment, 5-judge bench decision came, and we were all worried within the organization that how will it impact. And people started, and we started working that even the appointment letter, which was on the letterhead of an organization which has an arbitration clause, the purchase orders, which has an arbitration clause, those letters on the consultancy and the engagement letter that we signed with many of the consultants, they have an arbitration clause. Based on that annual global judgment, we decided that should we stamp it? And suddenly we see this now 7-judge bench decision, which gives us that protection, and it says that arbitration clause will still be justified because that's a separate agreement altogether. So therefore, staying one step ahead of how the changes are happening, evaluating how the changes are going to impact the business, these are the key areas, Rag. And definitely for Indian GCs, we should do that exercise. That will be a good exercise of how we feel about some of the finer aspects.
Absolutely. It's time to close the panel, so let me get closing remarks from everyone. And I just want to say that, I went to an engineering college, I went to a business school, but after working for 5 years, I started one media company, then acquired another media company. So clearly, you can learn things. It's about how much effort you put into anything. Life is about focus. There's nothing that is not achievable. Anything that you focus in and you are at it and you get the mentoring from the right people, you have an inquisitive and a listening and a learning mindset, everything can happen. It depends on how hungry you are, so to say. And rest, a lot of it is luck, though I believe the harder you work, the luckier you get. But I'm maybe a little old-fashioned. And, also, I feel in the last 10 years, my angel investor was a lawyer. When I started Exchange from India, you may know him, Harvansh, right? Harvansh is a friend of mine, and, I'd gone to a large industrialist who was this 23 years back, and Harvansh said, I called Harvansh saying, he wants an SHA. What is an SHA? I didn't know, and I now know what is an SHA. I've signed many in many companies. And Harvansh said, oh, you need money, take it. And my closest, before Harvansh, the only lawyer I knew was DT. He was my friend, Titus. And I met you through Seema, right? I first met Seema at TT because he was my buddy, it was not, he even offered me a legal role. At 26, I said, मैं क्या करूँगा यार DT? मुझे तो law आता नहीं है. So I can only say seeing lawyers in the last 23 years, because my journey started with a lawyer writing me a 70 lakh rupee check 23 years back to start my first company. So I have seen, I've had some funny incidents with lawyers. One being one day, I used to have in 97, I used to have a Maruti 800, chauffeur driven though, red colored. I hate driving, now I don't drive. And at the GK Savitri, a lady bumped into my car. She was in an esteem. And according to my driver, उनके ड्राइवर की गलती थी, मैं अपना फ़ोन पे लगा था, मुझे पता, आज भी नहीं पता. But she came out and she was so aggressive. She said, you don't know, I work for a law firm. So I knew a lot of law firm founders even then. So I said, which law firm? She said, Kocher and Company. So I only knew two lawyers, Harvansh and DT. So I called both of them. I said, who's this Kocher? Right? You can imagine which Kocher. And I got to hear some amusing things. I will not say that on stage, but, and then I've had some other, and I remember I was speaking in Japan. I met a partner of Kocher and Company and invited for a meeting with Mr. Kocher. I had heard so much about him, so I said, okay, Mr. Kocher came 2 hours late, and then for the next 1 hour was telling me how much he's spending on his daughter's birthday. For the next 1 hour, I heard that. So I have many, but the point I'm trying to make is the role of GC has become very much in demand. I get young people coming to me who work in law firms because of this 4 years of BW Legal World, asking my advice. They all want to become GCs. So law firm वाले सब GC बन जाएंगे तो law firm कैसे चलेंगी? ये क्वेश्चन का आंसर बताओ मुझे. सब GC बनना चाहते हैं.
मैं आपको बताता हूँ एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन वन ऑफ द फोरम्स एंड वी वर डूइंग विद द लॉ फर्म्स एंड देयर वर लॉट ऑफ attritions happening within the law firms, and one of the managing partner of a prominent law firm was talking about it, and I said that, look, one of the areas that you are not looking at it is your biggest competition today is with in-house counsels, because now the gentry and the quality of in-house counsels that you see in the corporate houses is very different from what it was 10, 15 years back. Today we know and we are updated with the law as much as a lawyer in a law firm is.
If I may add, they have super specialization where we can't afford that.
So, and Rajiv said, and everybody's talked about that trust and integration with the business, and that is where we are one step above them. Of course, they will have more experience in terms of diversification, dealing with more organizations. But when it comes to us, we know the businesses, and we are equally competent and up to date with the latest laws and the judgments and the laws, and so therefore, the biggest competition is with the in-house counsels, right? And you said that's one thing about, because there are a lot of, I can see there are a lot of young law students that is here, Annurag, and we are also.
And some of the winners, I can see some of the winners that started coming in.
Yeah. So, 2000, there were just 500 law colleges in India. And 22 years from now, 2022, I was just reading somewhere, there are 1700 law colleges now, right? So just make an average of 300 to 400 law students every law college. How many law graduates we are producing in India? And therefore the competition is on quality and the kind of competitiveness that is generating. Right?
So closing comments from you, Ms. Khanna.
I'll just add on. I think I always sort of joke around with my law firm friends that, obviously law firms have a very important role for us because I come from a law firm background. I was trained in a law firm which got me a job in-house, right? So with due respect, I think they have a very important, because they are the kind of drafting, the kind of.
No, I'm saying they're good, but everyone wants to be on the GC
side.
Yeah,
because I think you see the positive side. Our general counsel's roles have become so lucrative, and see the amount of opportunities that now the law school students have, which were now only earlier limited to mostly courts. So I think that's the positive side. That if people want to aspire to be a general counsel, see the amount of law graduates you are attracting into this profession, which was not the case many years down the line. So I see that from a more positive side.
Pranav, your final comment.
डॉक्टर बत्रा, आपने एक कहावत सुनी होगी, दूर के ढोल सुहावने।
नहीं, हाँ, वो तो है ही।
वही है कि लॉ फर्म को लगता है कि जीसी की लाइफ बड़ी अच्छी है, जीसी को सीईओ बनना है, और सीईओ भी सोच रहा है कि मैं कहाँ जाऊँ कि मतलब मेरे को कुछ ना भी करना पड़े और कंसिस्टेंटली पैसा भी आता रहे। तो ये दूर के ढोल सुहावने, जब तक आप काम करोगे आपको अच्छा लगता रहेगा, आप करते रहो, नहीं तो संन्यास ले लो, क्योंकि हर रोल में अपने चैलेंजेस हैं और वो चैलेंजेस आते ही रहेंगे, चाहे आप किसी भी पोजीशन पे हो, चाहे आपका बैकग्राउंड लॉ है, फाइनेंस है, इंजीनियरिंग है, marketing hai, ye challenges.
Yeah, very, very important points that, both roles are important and they have their pros and cons. That's what Mr. Pranav Mehra is saying. Pranav, because you work for Freshworks, now again the age of GCs is getting younger. I meet GCs who are about 40, 41, 42, 43. So, and that's happening in every profession. So the CHROs are getting younger, the CEOs are getting younger. So there is a, overall people are achieving a lot more. Younger people are getting larger responsibilities a little earlier, right? Do you see the age of GCs becoming even younger than 40?
कभी कभी मैं भी हैरान होता हूँ कि मुझसे भी यंग लोग जीसी बन गए हैं और उनके पास एक्सपीरियंस भी नहीं है और वो हमसे ही पूछते हैं कि ये कैसे सॉल्व करेंगे, जो बहुत ही बेसिक क्वेश्चंस हैं। तो जीसी का टाइटल होना से कुछ नहीं होता है, यू शुड ब्रिंग एक्सपीरियंस टू द टेबल।
थैंक यू प्रणव फॉर बीइंग रियल।
As a global company, I
Virgos can be very real.
As a global company, I report to chief legal officer who is double my experience, and she looks at much more than what I have experience on. Of course, it takes time, but ऐसा नहीं है कि आप कल लॉ स्कूल से निकले और परसों आपको जीसी की नौकरी मिल गई और आप ये पैनल पे आ गए। वो बत्रा जी का भी एक फिल्टर है, वहाँ बैठी हैं वो उनको पता रहता है कौन किसके पास कितना एक्सपीरियंस है। तो it takes time to reach at a certain stage in life.
Your final comment,
I think from my side, I think we are living in a VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And in such times, I think as a GC, I think the key challenge is to deliver.
Absolutely.
So delivery is the key.
One of the things they said is ultimately you have to take a decision, you have to provide a solution. You may give a legal view, but it has to dovetail a business view. final point from you, Ms. Nautiyal.
Just to answer your question, Mr. Batra, that why lawyers, law firms are aspiring to be GCs.
Law firm professionals.
Law firm professionals, sorry. So because when they interact with us today, the only reason we outsource work today is not because of lack of legal talent. It is only because of limited people. Because we in-house counsels do not have big teams and resources like law firms have. And when we interact with them, they realize that the legal acumen and astute which we have is at par, and at times better because we understand our business better. And the opportunities that we have, the diversification, like, in my 14 years of experience working in 3 organizations, I have done a little bit of retail banking, I have handled cards, I have done digital banking, I'm handling international branches, I have done investment banking. Had I been in a law firm, at least for 5 to 6 years, I would have to develop my expertise in one area. So after 14 years, I would have been probably a project finance lawyer at best, to be very honest. So that is why, and the interactions are so close, and they see how we are running the transactions, so that mutual respect is there, and that is why probably, what you are saying is there. And what, Pranav, just to slightly, disagree with you on that point, that, what experience brings to the table can never be taken away. Like, Mr. Bhasin spoke about his years of experience, and I was totally spellbound with what he was saying and agreeing. But younger people, the edge they have over the older generation is the adaptability. And we are transforming. So the change, the acceptance to change, the adapt to it and deliver is faster with, somehow it is, I don't count myself as one of those, though I'm trying to be, but that mindset of the Gen Zs and millennials. So that is why they have aspirations to be a GC at a younger age. Like, I still call myself as an aspiring GC because I know I have years to go. But that is the difference. And I will not be surprised that, maybe a few years later, I meet a GC who's younger to me, but brings a lot to the table because at a very young age, probably he or she has experienced a lot. So, times are changing.
I must tell you an anecdote from yesterday.
Sure.
So my first company is Exchange for Media. I don't run it. Well, of course, it's my company, and it's the whole ecosystem of advertising, marketing, media. They're my friends. I grew up with them, they grew. So yesterday, a journalist friend of mine called, and he's about 43, and then he said, I want to come and meet you. I said, okay, come. I've known him for many years. Came and met me, and he said, I work for an ex-organization. I'm not enjoying because I have a new boss. Can you recommend me? You know everyone. So I said, okay, tell me, I'll call anyone. So he said this, so I called the boss. And he's luckily a very close friend of mine. And he's himself about 46 or 45. I mean, be off by a year. But so he said to me he has a mandate that in the digital business, they can't recruit people above 40.
That's true.
Right? So he
Digital
said, in fact,
mindset.
we're trying to recruit people between 30 to 35. I have to call that senior journalist and tell him, boss, this is the reason you won't get a job there. But I believe, yes, younger people think different, but I think the skills that are needed are both of experience and of dynamism. And I think, I can say a lot of older people than 40 work as hard or are as driven as younger professionals. The thinking may be a little different, but they're very driven in terms of learning about new things, about new areas. He talked about the 3 areas that are top. So I don't think it's an either or, but yes, the age of achievement is getting younger. I see it across functions. So on this note, I'll wrap up this GC panel. We have a Millennial Changemakers Conclave on 22nd at the IIC first year. Actually the oldest speaker was 22, but Nandini's added one more 25-year-old. I was growling at her yesterday for adding a 25-year-old, but that's okay. She done a fab job. Talis is here he runs our CHRO, CFO, and is now relaunching our CIO and CDO community. We have a CHRO event on Wednesday at the Imperial, right? 20th is a Wednesday now, 18, 19, 20th. So I think we have a point of view on every community. So that the point I'm trying to make is that the age of achievement in every community is shrunk by 2-3 years. Maybe there is more talent. Also, in-house people are getting more opportunities. Also, what matters is what is the size of your ship. I mean, HDFC is a very large company, right? It was large even before the merger. With the merger, it is super large. So it's, again, if you're a GC of HDFC versus you're a GC of a smaller startup. Again, the startup may be in an area that will become so big that, that may be. So you shouldn't compare. Everything is unique. Every experience is unique. But the role of GCs is here to stay. The role of GCs is clearly governance, compliance, risk management, being a business enabler, as Ms. Khanna said. And as Mr. Sundram said, the role is getting expanded. The role is more important because it reports into the board and CEOs. So clearly, we as BW Legal World, we aspire to be the homepage of GCs. Out of our multiple issues, there are GCs on the cover. So, we want to be a homepage of GCs and do content that brings GCs to our editorial platform. With this, I'll lock this panel up. Please give our panel a big round of applause. I learned something and it made me think. Give a bigger round of applause. Clapping is good for art muscles. I know it's a Sunday, still a full house, and I think in the evening you'll meet a lot more people. So if you're staying back, stay back. Otherwise, come back in the evening to give away what some of you have been on the jury. So you have helped us decide both the 40 under 40 and the 30 under 30. So look forward to celebrating with you in the evening. Thank you.